Spoilers, they be about the place. When you think of some of the greatest sequels of all time, people tend to think of Terminator 2, Aliens, or The Empire Strikes Back. Films that truly built on what came before them and pushed their stories to new and exciting places. But feck all of those, as we aren't here to talk about any of those great movie films. Oh no, we are here to talk about something even more epic. Trancers 2, The Return of Jack Deth. That's right, the feckin' return of badass Trancer hunter Jack Deth, the sequel to the B-movie sci-fi epic Trancers from 1984. And lads, if you're sitting there thinking, how in the name of Christ did Trancers of all things get a sequel? Well, I'm here to tell you that there are bloody 6 of these things, and a short film set in between Trancers 1 and 2. Now that's a lot of Jack Deth kicking some ass right there, but it's the first sequel we are here to check out and see if it's B-movie goodness like the first film. So how about you hit the like button and the subscribe one before sitting back and horshing your favorite snack into yourself as we go back down the line to review Trancers 2, The Return of Jack Deth.
Trancers 2, The Return of Jack Deth.
Jack, the 20th century must be getting to you.
You have no idea.
Our movie film begins with McNulty being told by Rains that he has to go back down the line to 1991. Now, if you aren't familiar with the first movie film, that's what they call sending someone's consciousness back in time to the body of one of their ancestors. But McNulty isn't happy about that, as his ancestor is a 15-year-old girl at that time.
Guys are gonna try and get in my pants.
It turns out they sent another person down to 1991 first, but they messed up their mission.
Special Agent Alice Stillwell.
Alice Stillwell. Jack Deth's wife? How can you send her back? She was killed in a Trancer fight 6.5 years ago.
We sent a technician back to the day before her death, but something went wrong. She failed to tap back for the TCL chamber.
Wait, so she's saying they sent someone back in time to Alice to send her back in time to go stop Trancers in 1991, and now they have to send another person back to 1991 to help save her? Yep. This is a B-movie plot, alright. And it turns out the Whistler, the bad lad from the first film, has a feckin' brother.
The transfer pool has been revived by the new Whistler.
The new Whistler?
His brother.
When did he get a brother?
As soon as they decided to make a sequel, that's when. So Rains wants McNulty to go back down the line to tell Jack Deth to stop Whistler's brother and bring him back in this fancy contraption. It turns out they can't bring Deth back the normal way to the future, as the lad has been living it up big style in the past, so much that his body has gone off like days old veg here in the future. That lad's body is #dushed. Rains gives McNulty a fancy new watch that not only stops time for a while, but also summons the tapback machine to the location it's placed. But why would Jack want to come back to this shitty future in the first place?
Jack Deth has been offered a seat on the council.
A council seat? That's a lifetime appointment.
Oh yeah, cause coming back to the fecked up future to be a politician is so much better sounding than staying in the past having a spot of riding with a young Helen Hunt. As back in the present, Jack and Lena have gotten married and are going to visit their old friend Hap. Yeah, remember this steamboat's lad from the first film? Well, he's no longer a fiend for the sauce, as he's become filthy rich and now collects fire trucks. I swear, that will come back later on in the film. Jack has this odd feeling that Trancers have returned.
I've been having a strange feeling. A feeling you get when there are Trancers around. Somehow I knew they were back.
Anyway, the next day a gardener shows up to Hap's place, and wouldn't you feckin' know it, he only turns out to be a feckin' Trancer of all things. But then this happens. Where the fuck did these 2 other lads come from? Only one gardener showed up. With the Trancers done and dusted, McNulty shows up in the body of his teenage ancestor. McNulty's like, fuck, the Trancers are about the place, and accidentally places the tapback machine in the feckin' garden like a twat. He also tells Jack that a female Trancer hunter was sent back to stop Whistler's brother, but doesn't tell him that it's his wife. So we find Jack's wife in the feckin' loony bin. She's trying to convince one of the orderlies called Rabbit that works here to get her watch back for her, but he's not arsed helping her at all. And holy shit, it's Jeffrey Combs from Reanimator as one of the bad lads who's watching over Alice. He's also joined by this evil looking Bjorn. We find out this place isn't actually a loony bin at all, but a group called Green World run by Whistler's brother. It's an environmental group that's out to save the planet. Oh fuck lads, Greta Thornberry could be trying to turn all of us into bloody Trancers. We need Jack Deth to sort this fucking mad one out. Anyway, back to the film, as Alice tries to spike Rabbit, who is sneaking in another orderly to have a spot of booze with, but she ends up knocking out the Bureau instead by mistake. Luckily, Alice does find her watch and a pic of Jack, and then she gets the feck out of there. She wanders into a barn for some reason and places her tap-back device in it, which causes McNulty's one to glitch out, and only the door shows up there. Jack is like, that other hunter fucked up and it's best to leave her to her own mess, but that's when McNulty drops the bomb on Jack.
She's your wife.
Jack is like, fuck me, my wife is still alive?
Alice alive? Again? In another body?
You bet for sure he's like, oh, I wonder is she in a young hot body? And you know what, Jack? You'd be fucking right. The next day, Jack goes off to the place the gardeners came from, and wouldn't you know it, these boys are also feckin' Trancers. After getting pinned to the feckin' wall, Jack uses his long second watch to slow down time, which lets him karate chop the shit through this board, and then he absolutely riddles these Trancers with bullets, who then turn to dust and freak out these two owl ones. But Jack reassures them with a sweet one-liner.
Don't worry, ladies. They're biodegradable.
Back at Greenworld, Alice is in the barn with the tap-back machine. Christ, that thing looks so fucking cheap. But fuck, the bad lads are on the lookout for her, so she starts her long second watch, which allows objects to fall at normal speed, but not people. That doesn't make much sense, but neither does half this film. Anyway, Alice gets out of the barn and then ends up getting feckin' caught again. Lena uses her computer skills to learn what she can about Greenworld. Jack just went and dusted some gardeners. He never got any information on anything. But Jack somehow magically puts it all together.
Dr. E.D. Wardo, as an Edward O. Whistler. Brother of the late James E.
You mean Dr. Wardo was Whistler's brother? Bitchin', man.
Jack now has some Trancers to kill, so you know it's time to wet the feckin' hair and go and kick some ass. Because remember,
Dry hairs for squids.
Alice has been taken to an examination room where she meets Dr. Wardo, Whistler's brother, who wants to transfer her to another facility. Jesus, he has a face on him like a burst mattress. Just as Alice is being transferred, Jack happens to show up just in time to save her. Those lads weren't even Trancers. I think Jack just murdered them. And he doesn't even bother his whole untying Alice and just makes a getaway. They do end up stopping and they figure out that they are husband and wife, and then this happens.
Oh my God, Jack, it is you. The only man I ever had sex with.
Wasn't that bad?
Man, B-movie dialogue is just the best. What the fuck was that? Later that night, Jack and Alice catch up and then start eating the face off each other. And who should walk in but feckin' Lena, who is like, Jack, you cheating bastard.
Jack, you son of a bitch.
Jack is like, oh, bollocks. So he chases after Lena to explain to her that she's still his #1 Bure. And then he gets the shift off her too. Jesus, 2 Bures in one night. Jack is like a randy Irish lad in a nightclub. Later that night, a lad is stopping over to leave some groceries, but Jack is having none of it, until Hap tells him, nah, he's good. But, as the guy leaves, McNulty notices something wrong with the feckin' ham.
Hey, Jack, what's with this ham? It's stuffed like a turkey.
Why didn't he just come in and kill them while they were just chatting?
We did it, Jack. We scorched another one.
Oh, God, how I'd like to make love to you right now.
This one is so fucking randy, it's unreal. So of course Lena walks in again. This is the same fucking scene we just had 2 minutes ago.
Jack, you son of a bitch!
And he ends up losing both the women, much to both the McNulty's and Hap's delight.
Good work, Jack. Now you got them both mad at you.
God damn it, McNulty. The next time someone hands you an exploding ham, I'm gonna pass the mustard.
The next day, Jack tries to make up with Lena by telling her that Alice doesn't have much time to live. As if she's sent back up the line, she will die. So Lena should calm down and relax about the shifting. But Lena's having none of this, so she feckin' leaves Jack with only one hot wife. Oh, however will he live with himself? And Jack even has other problems, as McNulty tells him that Hap has gotten steamboats and fecked off somewhere. So Jack and Alice go hunting for Hap, but come across Dr. Wardo's goons kidnapping homeless lads. So Jack dresses up as a homeless lad and steals their truck, while Alice kills a bunch of these lads. Once again, not one of these lads appears to be a Trancer. It's probably because they ran out of the budget for the makeup on them. Well, it turns out Hap is absolutely off his face playing some baseball with some homeless lads across town. But the bad lads show up coming for Hap. But don't worry, cause Jack Deth is about the place and here to kick some ass. Alice tells Hap to get his drunk ass into the feckin' van and they get the fuck out of there. Back at the house, Jack gives McNulty, who is in the body of a 15-year-old, a drug that he says is worse than crack. And McNulty has been smoking this whole time. He's fucking that 15-year-old's body up. Also, why aren't her parents out looking for her? Anyway, they took the drug off Wardlow's men and figure out that Wardlow is using this drug and homeless lads to create a transfer army. And this depresses poor Hap as they are out to get him.
What's the matter, Hap? You look like you swallowed a cat.
That's not a fucking saying. Meanwhile, Lena ends up getting feckin' kidnapped, and then brought to Dr. Wardo, who wants to do a spot of trancing on her. But Jack and Alice are here to save her, by falling out of the fucking sky. Jack steals the guard's uniform and pretends to have captured Alice so he can go save Lena. And feckin' Rabbit while he's at it, who turns out is a good lad now. For some reason this greenhouse they leg it into has petrol or something lying around the place, so Jack just uses it to burn the place down. Seems like a bit of a safety hazard to me, but as they leave, Rabbit gets dusted so fucking hard that his clothes change fucking colour. Jack and the Buers run into the barn to the TCL chamber, where Alice tells Jack that he needs to go back up with her. But the bad lads are here to put a stop to that. Oh fuck, how are the lads going to get out of this one? Well, that's a new one, and I'm pretty sure that thing wouldn't be bulletproof. But our heroes have plot armor plus 50, so of course they managed to dust a ton of these guys, including poor Jeffrey. He barely got to do anything. And then Hap shows up in a fire truck with McNulty, which for some reason scares off the rest of Wardo's men. Why would they be afraid of a fire truck? And with Wardo all by his lonesome, Jack just tosses a feckin' pitchfork right into him. Hashtag dushed. Afterwards, Hap and McNulty put out the fire and save the TCL chamber. McNulty wants Jack to come back with him, but Jack is having none of it, cause he still wants him a slice of Lena. So he tells Alice to go back up the line in the TCL chamber so she can skip over her own death and have a new life for herself. So Alice hops in the feckin' thing and says good luck to you lads and heads back to the future. But wait a second now. If you remember right, to go back down the line, you go into the body of your ancestor. So Alice is in that body. So Jack just told her to basically steal that young girl's life from her, and she had no choice in it. Also, she's Alice's ancestor, so without her in the past to have kids, how can Alice even exist right now? Stop it lad, you were trying to explain a feckin' B-movie's plot. Just let it go. Anyway, the film ends with Jack and Lena buying a house and Jack getting the shift again, cause he's smooth as fuck. Trancers 2 is one of those sequels that tries to be bigger and better than the original, but does it succeed? Well, let's move on to the stuff I found good in this film. Tim Thomerson as Jack Deth is once again great in this. He just has a great screen presence for this type of B-movie schlock, and he is perfect in the role. He has some great one-liners in this one, and he bounces off the rest of the cast with ease. Everyone else in the film, from Helen Hunt to newcomer Megan Ward as Alice, all do a good job in the roles as well, and all of the main good guy performances are a lot of fun. The film was also given a much bigger budget than the original, and it does show on the screen as they have much more action in it and a higher production value all around. And while the plot for this one isn't that captivating, the moments the characters have between each other at Hap's house, like the exploding ham bit, are all good B-movie goodness. Also, some of the dialogue in this film is just incredible, like the exploding ham line or the whole only man I ever had sex with bit, because they're just so stupid and weird you can't help but laugh at them. But that's where my positives for this film end. So let's move on to the bad, and also some of the kind of confusing things in this film. First off, the bad guys in this really aren't all that good or menacing. Sure, Whistler wasn't great in the original either, but here they had the chance to outdo him, and they really didn't. Dr. Wardo isn't a great villain at all. Sure, actor Richard Lynch looks pretty creepy as him, but he's just kind of boring. And like I said, you have Jeffrey Combs right there as a henchman, and they do nothing with him. He could have been the lead bad guy. The man is so good at playing daft, crazy characters. The plot for this film is trying to do way too much for its own good, and it kind of becomes a bit of a mess. Like, Wardo has this plan to turn people into Trancers with Greenworld, yet for some reason before he carries out this plan he sends Trancers to Hap's house to try to kill him? Why not wait until he had this army of Trancers and then send them to Hap's house? All he did was tip Jack off that Trancers were about the place. Although Jack does seem to have Trancer sense, as he seems to know at the start of the film that Trancers have made a comeback. At least in the first film, Whistler had no clue where Hap was, so he couldn't have done this. Also, some of the acting in this is bad. Like, it wasn't great in the first film, but its charm made up for it. This one has some truly bad stuff from some of the supporting characters, mainly the bad guys and the people with smaller parts. Also, I honestly really like the soundtrack to this film, but they use it so oddly. They try to make moments where nothing is happening seem exciting by playing action-packed music, but it doesn't work. You think something like a high-speed chase is about to happen, but then we cut to Jack just cruising down the road. It makes the film seem even cheaper than it is. And speaking of action scenes, some of them are just all over the shop in this film. They really come across as cheap and sometimes make no sense at all. Like, honestly, where did the other two Trancers come from in the garden near the start of the film? It just made no sense. And the biggest thing about this film that is weird is that it breaks its own logic from the first film. The guys in the future want to bring Jack back up the line in the TCL chamber so he can join the council, but that makes no sense. He is in the body of his own ancestor, and he and Lena have not had a child by Trancers 2, so if he were to go back up the line in his body, then he would wipe out his own bloodline, therefore making it so that he never existed. The same goes for Alice when she arrives back to the future. I know it's a B movie, but they really could have explained this or figured out a way to make it make sense. So, in conclusion, Trancers 2 is an okay follow-up to the original film. It loses the campy charm the original had and tries to do too much with a very low budget. But it's still a fun watch, especially if you want to see Jack Deth busting some heads and saying some one-liners. So I give Trancers 2, The Return of Jack Deth, 4.5 out of 10 Horshes. So, let me know down in the comments below what you think of Trancers 2, The Return of Jack Deth. Is this a fun sequel to the first Trancers, or does it have dry hair like a squid? Remember to hit that like button and the subscribe one, and I'll see you next time when we horsh into another movie film.